My name is Claire, and I'm the kind of person who thrives on solving problems. You could call me a builder, someone who takes chaos and turns it into something functional, something that works like clockwork. For years, I poured my soul into creating systems for other people to succeed. I built bridges where there were gaps, streamlined processes where there was inefficiency, and turned ideas into reality when others only saw obstacles. And yet, here I am now, sitting in this dimly lit cafe with a coffee gone cold, thinking about how the very system I created became the thing that almost broke me. Let me start from the beginning because, honestly, it's hard to believe even now. It all began 3 years ago when I was just another ambitious woman working her way up in corporate America. Back then, I worked at a mid-sized tech company called Nexera Solutions, a place filled with big dreams but small budgets. They hired me as their operations manager, though manager felt like an overstatement for what they really needed. Someone willing to roll up their sleeves and fix everything wrong under the hood. The CEO, Richard Hayes, had promised me freedom to innovate if I joined them. He said he wanted someone who could think outside the box, who wouldn't be afraid to challenge the status quo. At the time, those words sounded exciting. Little did I know, they'd come back to haunt me. Nexera wasn't failing exactly, but it wasn't thriving either. Their operations were clunky, inefficient, and riddled with redundancies. Employees spent more time wrestling with outdated software than actually doing meaningful work. Clients complained constantly about delayed deliveries and poor communication. When I walked through the office on my first day, I noticed the tension immediately, the hushed whispers, the frustrated sighs, the sense that everyone was barely holding on by a thread. But instead of feeling overwhelmed, I felt invigorated. This was my chance to prove myself, to show what I was capable of. The first few months were brutal. I spent long nights poring over spreadsheets, mapping out workflows, and identifying bottlenecks. I talked to every department head, asking questions no one else dared to ask. Slowly, patterns emerged. There were glaring inefficiencies everywhere. Manual tasks that should have been automated, overlapping responsibilities between teams, and tools that simply didn't integrate well with each other. It was messy, chaotic, and exhausting, but also exhilarating. Every problem I uncovered was another puzzle waiting to be solved. I decided early on that Nexera needed a complete overhaul. Not just tweaking existing processes, but building an entirely new system from scratch. A centralized platform that would connect every aspect of the business. Sales, customer service, logistics, inventory management, you name it. It would streamline communication, automate repetitive tasks, and provide real-time data analytics so we could make smarter decisions faster. I called it Nexus Flow, not because I thought it was particularly clever, but because it sounded strong and dependable, like the foundation I hoped it would become. Of course, convincing Richard and the rest of the leadership team to invest in such a massive project wasn't easy. They balked at the cost estimates, questioned whether it was truly necessary, and worried about disrupting day-to-day operations during implementation. But I refused to give up. I presented detailed proposals, ran pilot tests to demonstrate potential ROI, and even offered to personally oversee the entire development process to ensure minimal disruption. Eventually, they agreed, not because they fully believed in my vision, but because they didn't see any other options. Building Nexus Flow was the hardest thing I've ever done. It required me to wear more hats than I thought possible. Project manager, developer liaison, trainer, cheerleader. Some days, I felt unstoppable, like I was single-handedly turning the tide. Other days, I doubted myself, wondering if I'd bitten off more than I could chew. But slowly, piece by piece, Nexus Flow came together. By the end of the first year, we launched a beta version across select departments. Within weeks, productivity skyrocketed, mistakes plummeted, morale improved. People started smiling again. By the second year, Nexus Flow was fully operational company-wide. It transformed Nexera overnight. Orders processed faster, clients were happier, and profit soared. We went from struggling to stay afloat to being recognized as one of the fastest-growing companies in our industry. Awards rolled in, media coverage followed, and suddenly everyone wanted to know our secret. Richard couldn't stop talking about Nexus Flow at conferences and investor meetings. He called it revolutionary, groundbreaking, transformative, all the buzzwords you can imagine. What he didn't mention, of course, was that none of it would have been possible without me. And that's where things started to go sideways. At first, I didn't notice the subtle shifts. Richard stopped inviting me to high-level strategy meetings. My emails went unanswered for longer stretches of time. When I tried to schedule check-ins with him to discuss future improvements for Nexus Flow, his assistant always found some excuse to reschedule. Then came the budget cuts. Resources I relied on disappeared overnight. Key team members were reassigned to other projects without warning. It was confusing, frustrating, and frankly insulting after everything I'd done for the company. But the final blow came 6 months later, during what was supposed to be a routine performance review. Instead of praise or recognition, I found myself sitting across from Richard in his sleek corner office, staring at a termination letter. His explanation was vague, citing organizational restructuring and budget constraints. He avoided eye contact the entire time, his voice flat and detached, as if firing me was just another item to cross off his to-do list. I left that meeting in a daze, clutching the letter like it might burst into flames at any moment. How could this happen? After everything I'd sacrificed, everything I'd achieved for Nexera, they were throwing me away like yesterday's trash. Anger bubbled inside me, hot and sharp, but beneath it lay something far worse, betrayal. Betrayal by a man I once respected, by colleagues who benefited from my hard work, by a system I'd trusted to reward merit and dedication. That anger festered, growing darker and sharper with each passing day. For weeks afterward, I couldn't bring myself to leave the house. I replayed every decision I'd made, questioning whether I'd missed some crucial detail, some sign that things were headed south. Was it arrogance that blinded me? Naivety? Or had I simply underestimated how disposable people are in the corporate world? Whatever the reason, one thing became painfully clear. I'd given Nexera everything, and they'd repaid me by taking it all away. But life has a funny way of forcing you to move forward, even when you don't want to. Bills piled up, savings dwindled, and eventually I realized I had two choices: wallow in self-pity or figure out how to turn this disaster into something worthwhile. So I chose the latter. It started with a phone call, a former colleague reaching out to ask if I'd consider consulting for a startup struggling with similar operational challenges. At first, I hesitated. The last thing I wanted was to dive back into the corporate world so soon after being burned. But curiosity got the better choice of me. During our conversation, I casually mentioned Nexus Flow, explaining how it had revolutionized Nexera's operations. To my surprise, the founder seemed genuinely intrigued. She asked if I'd be open to licensing the technology, or better yet, helping them implement it themselves. That's when the idea hit me. Why shouldn't I profit from what I'd created? Sure, Nexera owned the rights to Nexus Flow, but they hadn't developed it alone. I'd poured my blood, sweat, and tears into every line of code, every feature, every iteration. And now, thanks to their short-sightedness, they'd handed me the perfect opportunity for revenge. So, I struck a deal with the startup. In exchange for a hefty fee, I offered to act as a consultant, guiding them through the implementation of a customized version of Nexus Flow. Word spread quickly within my network, and soon, other companies came knocking. Each time, I negotiated higher fees, leveraging the success stories of previous clients to justify the price tag. Before long, I was renting out my expertise and indirectly the very system Nexera had fired me over, at 5 times the value they deemed me worth. Still, it wasn't enough. Revenge isn't just about money, it's about power, about making them feel the same sting of betrayal I'd endured. And deep down, I knew I wasn't finished yet. As the months passed, I grew bolder. I expanded my services, offering workshops, webinars, and even keynote speeches at industry events. My reputation grew, fueled by whispers of the woman who'd taken down a corporate giant from the inside. Journalists reached out, eager to hear my story. Entrepreneurs sought my advice, desperate to learn the secrets behind Nexus Flow's success. With each new client, each new accolade, I felt a little bit of that old confidence returning. But here's the thing about revenge. It's addictive. Once you taste it, once you feel the rush of reclaiming control, it's hard to stop. And as much as I enjoyed watching Nexera squirm, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that I was playing a game I didn't fully understand. Because while I'd managed to rebuild my career, to carve out a niche for myself in this cutthroat world, I still didn't have the answers to the questions that haunted me most. Why had Richard betrayed me? Did he ever regret it? And perhaps most importantly, what did I truly want moving forward? These thoughts swirl in my mind as I sit here in this cafe, staring at the rain-streaked window. Outside, the city buzzes with life, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. Somewhere out there, Nexera continues to thrive, powered by the system I created. Meanwhile, I'm stuck in limbo, caught between the past I can't escape and the future I'm too afraid to embrace. The rain outside slows to a drizzle, and I glance at my watch. It's late, later than I realized, and the cafe is nearly empty now. The barista gives me a polite nod as she wipes down the counter, her movements slow and deliberate, like she knows I've been nursing this same cup of coffee for hours. Maybe she senses the weight of whatever it is that's keeping me rooted to the seat. Or maybe she just thinks I'm another overworked professional drowning in thoughts too big for a single afternoon. Either way, I don't leave. Not yet. Because even though the world outside feels vast and indifferent, there's something comforting about staying here, cocooned in this little bubble where no one expects anything from me, where I can let myself think without interruption or judgment. And think I do. As much as I tell myself that revenge has been satisfying, that reclaiming control over what was taken from me has been empowering, there's a part of me that wonders if it's all just smoke and mirrors. Sure, I've built a new life for myself, one that's arguably better than the one I had before. But deep down, does it really fill the void? Does it erase the sting of betrayal or the lingering question of why? Why did Richard fire me? Was it greed? Fear? Jealousy? Or was it something simpler, something more mundane? Like thinking I'd outgrown my usefulness once Nexus Flow was up and running? The truth is, I'll probably never know. And maybe that's the hardest pill to swallow, not knowing whether I mattered to them at all. But dwelling on that won't change anything. What's done is done. Nexera made its choice, and so did I. Now it's time to decide what comes next, for real this time. Revenge may have fueled me for a while, but it's not enough to sustain me forever. At some point, you have to stop looking back and start building forward. The next morning, I wake up earlier than usual, restless energy buzzing through my veins. For the first time in months, I feel ready. Ready to take the next step, whatever that might be. I grab my laptop and head to the co-working space downtown, a sleek glass building filled with freelancers, entrepreneurs, and dreamers like me. It's noisy and chaotic, but also alive in a way that feels invigorating. People huddle around tables, sketching ideas on whiteboards, typing furiously, laughing, arguing. There's a sense of possibility in the air, and for once, I want to be part of it. I settle into a corner desk and open a blank document. Staring at the cursor blinking on the screen, I hesitate for only a moment before typing the words. Project Phoenix. It's a name that came to me last night, unbidden but perfect. Like the mythical bird rising from ashes, it symbolizes rebirth, renewal, transformation. That's what this needs to be. A fresh start, not just for me, but for everything I've created. Nexus Flow was brilliant, yes, but it wasn't mine anymore. And honestly, holding on to it felt like clinging to the past rather than embracing the future. So, what comes after Nexus Flow? What does the next evolution look like? I spend the entire day brainstorming, jotting down notes, sketching diagrams. Ideas flow faster than I can write them down, each one sparking another until my notebook is a jumble of arrows, circles, and half-formed concepts. By the end of the day, my brain feels fried, but I'm smiling. For the first time in ages, I feel like I'm creating something entirely new, something that belongs solely to me. By the end of the week, Project Phoenix starts to take shape. It's bigger, bolder, and infinitely more ambitious than Nexus Flow ever was. While Nexus Flow focused on streamlining operations within existing systems, Phoenix is designed to reimagine those systems altogether. Imagine a platform that doesn't just automate tasks but anticipates needs, adapts in real time, and evolves alongside its users. A system that learns, grows, and improves itself constantly, not unlike artificial intelligence, but tailored specifically for businesses. Of course, turning this vision into reality will require resources far beyond what I currently have. Money, talent, connections, all things I'll need to secure if I want to bring Phoenix to life. But I'm not daunted. If anything, the challenge excites me. After years of playing by someone else's rules, it's liberating to finally set my own. Over the next few weeks, I throw myself into networking like never before. I attend conferences, pitch events, and industry meetups, introducing myself to anyone who might be interested in hearing about Project Phoenix. Some people are skeptical, dismissing my ideas as impractical or overly ambitious. Others are intrigued, asking thoughtful questions and offering valuable feedback. A handful, even fewer, seem genuinely excited, their eyes lighting up at the prospect of being part of something groundbreaking. One of these people is Daniel Kwan, a venture capitalist known for funding high-risk, high-reward startups. We meet at a tech summit in San Francisco, where I'm presenting an early prototype of Phoenix during a breakout session. He approaches me afterward, his expression unreadable but his handshake firm. "You're either crazy or brilliant," he says, cutting straight to the chase. "Which one is it?" I laugh, caught off guard by his bluntness. "Probably a bit of both." He smirks, glancing at the presentation slides still displayed on the screen behind me. Most people would say automating operations is ambitious enough, but adaptive systems that learn and evolve? That's next-level stuff. Do you even know how to build something like that? I don't, I admit. Not yet, anyway. But I know the right people to help me figure it out. Daniel studies me for a long moment, his sharp gaze assessing. Then he nods slowly, as if making a decision. "All right, let's talk." We meet for coffee the following day, and by the end of our conversation, I walk away with not just his business card, but also a tentative promise of investment, if I can prove that Phoenix is viable. It's not a guarantee, but it's a start. More importantly, it's validation that I'm onto something worth pursuing. As word spreads about Project Phoenix, opportunities begin to unfold in unexpected ways. Former colleagues reach out, eager to join my team. Potential clients express interest in beta testing the platform once it's developed. Even journalists start calling, intrigued by the woman who went from corporate cast-off to tech innovator overnight. Through it all, I can't help but notice the irony. Nexer have fired me because they thought I was expendable. Yet here I am, proving them wrong in the most spectacular way possible. Every milestone I hit, every investor I secure, every article written about me feels like a direct middle finger to Richard Hayes and everyone else who doubted me. But somewhere along the way, the anger begins to fade. It's not that I've forgiven them. It's that I've moved beyond needing their approval. Revenge was a catalyst, sure, but it's no longer the driving force behind what I'm doing. Instead, I'm motivated by something deeper, the desire to create something meaningful, something that pushes boundaries and changes lives, something that proves I'm capable of more than anyone, including myself, ever imagined. Still, I can't resist one final twist of the knife. A few months later, I receive an invitation to speak at a prestigious tech conference, the same one where Richard Hayes is scheduled to deliver the keynote address. The organizers assure me it's purely coincidental, but I suspect otherwise. Word travels fast in this industry, and I'm willing to bet Richard knows exactly who I am now. When the day arrives, I arrive early, dressed in a sleek black suit that makes me feel unstoppable. As I wait backstage, listening to Richard drone on about innovation and disruption, I can't help but smirk. If only he knew. Finally, it's my turn. I step onto the stage, the spotlight warm against my skin, and scan the audience. Somewhere near the front, I spot Richard, his face impassive but his posture stiff. Good. Let him squirm. "Thank you all for having me today." I begin, my voice steady and confident. "My name is Claire, and I'm here to talk about reinvention, about taking something broken and turning it into something extraordinary, about finding strength in adversity and using it to fuel your greatest achievements." I pause, letting my words sink in before continuing. Some of you may know my story, how I built a system that transformed a struggling company into an industry leader, only to be fired shortly after. Some of you may think that's the end of the story, but it's not, because sometimes the best innovations come from failure. Sometimes the greatest successes are born out of rejection. I glance at Richard again, meeting his gaze directly this time. His jaw tightens, but he doesn't look away. To those of you who face setbacks, who've been told you're not good enough, who've watched others take credit for your hard work, I say this: don't let them define you. Use their doubt as fuel. Build something they can't ignore. And when they try to catch up, make sure you're already miles ahead. The crowd erupts into applause, cheering loudly as I exit the stage. Backstage, I exhale deeply, feeling lighter than I have in years. Whatever happens next, I know I've won, Not because I've beaten Richard, but because I've proven to myself that I'm stronger than any obstacle thrown my way. I use my success to mentor others who face setbacks, proving that resilience can turn failure into triumph. Surrounded by a team that values creativity and collaboration, I find fulfillment not just in the accolades, but in the impact we create together. Life isn't perfect, but it's rich with purpose, and that's more than enough. As I stand on a balcony overlooking the city lights one evening, I realize revenge was never the goal. Redemption was. And now I've found it in spades.